Lyra knew the whisperings of Ethelgard Valley better than the names of her own fingers. Not the whisperings of the wind rustling through the colossal leaves of the ancient trees, nor the low murmur of the Silverflow River that carved its path through the valley's heart, nor even the hushed secrets exchanged by the villagers in the market square. These were the Waiathari whisperings, a sound like distant chimes woven into the very fabric of the air, a gentle, melodic hum that seemed to emanate from the deep earth, from the ancient stone, from the colossal living trees themselves. She had heard it for as long as she could remember, a constant comforting presence that no one else in her family, or indeed in all of Ethelgard, seemed to perceive. When she was a tiny thing, barely tall enough to peer over the polished root slab table in their home, she would point to the air and gurgle, "Listen, listen!" Her mother, with her hands perpetually dusted with flour from the communal ovens, would smile kindly and say, "That's just the wind, little sprout," or perhaps the songbirds of the dusk thicket planning their evening concert. Her father, whose calloused hands shaped the hardy wood of the valley's ancient trees into sturdy furniture and tools, would simply ruffle her hair and chuckle, "Always dreaming, aren't you, Lyra?" But it wasn't the wind, and it wasn't the birds. It was softer, deeper, a chorus without words, a melody without a discernible instrument. Sometimes it swelled, a rush of sound like 1,000 tiny bells ringing beneath the earth, making the air around her shimmer. Other times it receded to a thread-thin hum, almost imperceptible, a quiet assurance that it was still there, always there. Lyra had grown up with it, a secret companion, a private symphony. Ethelgard Valley was a place of deep old magic. The valley itself was cradled between the roots of the world's oldest trees, the colossal elderwoods. Their trunks were wider than many houses, their branches, gnarled and thick as dragons, soared so high they seemed to brush the very clouds. The villagers didn't live warm among the trees, they lived within them. Their homes were carved into the enormous knotty roots that snaked across the valley floor, or burrowed into the hollows of the lower trunks, each entrance a polished archway of natural wood, each window a pane of amber-tinted resin, looking out onto the perpetual twilight of the valley floor. Lyra's own home was nestled in the crook of 3 intertwining roots, its main chamber a vast domed space with walls of shimmering, naturally smoothed wood. Moss lamps, fed by a gentle inherent magic, cast a soft emerald glow, making the intricate carvings of ancient beasts and swirling patterns on the walls seem to dance. Life in Ethelgard was peaceful, structured by the slow, steady rhythm of nature. The sunblight, a rare phenomenon where sunlight managed to pierce the thick canopy of the elderwoods, was a celebrated event, painting the valley in fleeting gold. Mostly, the valley was lit by the soft radiance of luminescent fungi that grew in intricate patterns on the trees, and the gentle glow of the Silverflow River, whose waters carried tiny, sparkling motes of light. The people of Ethelgard were quiet, sturdy folk, their lives intertwined with the elderwoods, which provided everything from shelter to sustenance. They were proud of their ancient lineage, of their connection to the earth, and of their unique, sheltered world. Lyra, at 10 years old, was a tangle of curiosity and quiet observation. Her hair was the color of autumn leaves, usually escaping its braids to frame a face smudged with earth or ink. Her eyes, the deep green of the elderwood's shadowy depths, missed nothing. She loved to spend her afternoons in the Elderwood Library, a vast hollow within the oldest tree in the valley, where scrolls of cured bark and polished stone tablets detailed the history of Ethelgard and the forgotten lore of the outside world. But even more, she loved to wander. She knew every hidden nook, every moss-covered root hollow, every secret patch of glowberries in the immediate environs of her home. And the whisperings were always with her, a gentle current guiding her, sometimes drawing her towards a particularly ancient patch of moss, or a stone where the light seemed to catch just so. She'd often find herself sitting in silent communion, her fingers tracing the patterns on a root, the whisperings humming a lullaby in her ears, her heart feeling inexplicably full. Lately, though, the whisperings had begun to change. They were no longer just a background hum, a comforting presence. They were becoming insistent, clearer, louder. It was as if 1,000 voices, previously speaking in unison from a great distance, were now stepping closer, each voice distinct, though still without discernible words. The melodic hum had gained an edge, a sense of urgency, like a half-forgotten song just on the tip of memory, yearning to be recalled. One damp, misty morning, as Lyra helped her mother gather dewberries from the lower branches of a berry bush that grew near their root door, The whisperings swelled. They pulsed, a deep thrumming that vibrated through her bones, making the fine hairs on her arms stand on end. The air around her shimmered with visible motes of light, tiny pinpricks of emerald and silver that danced like fireflies. Her mother, reaching for a particularly plump berry, seemed not to notice. "Are you feeling unwell, little sprout?" her mother asked, turning to Lyra with a furrowed brow. "You're looking rather flushed." Lyra shook her head, trying to articulate the impossible. "Mother, can't you hear it? The whisperings, they're so loud today." Her mother paused, her hand hovering over a berry. She tilted her head, listening. "I hear the drip of the dew from the leaves, and the sleepy buzz of the dew bees waking up," she said, a gentle smile playing on her lips. "And perhaps the rumble of your stomach, calling for breakfast." She gave Lyra a playful poke. A wave of familiar frustration washed over Lyra. It was always the same. No one else heard it. No one else felt it. Was she truly so different? Was it all in her head? But the feeling was too real, too powerful to be mere imagination. The whisperings were a physical presence, a pressure behind her eyes, a tingle on her skin. "No, Mother," Lyra insisted, her voice small but firm. "It's different. It's calling to me." Her mother knelt, her kind eyes meeting Lyra's. "Sweetling, the Elderwoods are ancient and wise. They have their own ways of speaking. Perhaps you are simply more attuned to them than others. Many children have vivid imaginations. It's a gift. But do be careful not to wander too far, won't you? The deep roots are not for young feet." The deep roots referred to the oldest, most tangled parts of the Elderwoods, where the roots plunge deep into the earth, forming a labyrinthine maze. Even the grown-ups tread carefully there. Lyra nodded, though her heart sank. Her mother meant well, but she didn't understand. It wasn't imagination. It was real. And it was urging her, compelling her, to seek something out. After a breakfast of warm berry bread and nut milk, Lyra was tasked with polishing the resin windows of their home. It was a chore she usually enjoyed, watching the soft light filter through the amber panes as she wiped away the morning's mist. But today, the whisperings were a vibrant symphony, pulling at her, tugging at her senses like an invisible string. Each polish of the cloth felt like a distraction, each moment spent indoors a wasted opportunity. Her window looked out onto a particularly dense thicket of roots that formed a natural barrier at the edge of their family's small clearing. Beyond it lay a part of the valley Lyra hadn't explored much, a section known as the Weeping Woods, where the moss grew thick and velvety, and the air was always heavy with moisture, causing drops of water to constantly fall from the unseen canopy above. It was a place of quiet beauty, but also of deep shadows, and her parents had always gently discouraged her from venturing too far in. But today, the whisperings were coming from Ithare, from the heart of the Weeping Woods. They weren't just a hum now. They were distinct, almost like a chorus of ethereal voices, each note resonating with a gentle urgency, a beckoning. Lyra finished her chore with uncharacteristic haste, her heart thrumming in rhythm with the sound. "I'm going to gather some silver bells for Grandmother Ilara," she announced, grabbing her woven basket. Silver bells were tiny, bell-shaped flowers that grew in clusters deep within the valley, their petals shimmering with a faint silver light. Grandmother Ilara, her father's mother, cherished them. She lived in a smaller root house further up the valley, her days spent weaving intricate tapestries and telling stories of old. "Don't stray too far, my sprout," her mother called from the kitchen, the scent of baking bread wafting after Lyra as she slipped out the root door. Lyra didn't answer, already halfway across the clearing. The whisperings were now so potent, they felt like a current in the air, pulling her towards the Weeping Woods. She pushed through the familiar root thicket, the ancient wood cool and damp beneath her fingertips. The air grew immediately heavier, thick with the scent of damp earth and rich moss. The light, already dim in Ethelgard, became a deep emerald gloom here, filtered through layers of dense velvety moss that hung from every branch and root like shimmering curtains. She followed the sound, her steps light and careful, her eyes scanning the forest floor. The ground was a soft carpet of moss and fallen leaves, silent underfoot. The whisperings pulsed, growing stronger with every step. They seemed to emanate from a specific point, a particular direction. Lyra found herself veering off the familiar, albeit faint, game trails that wound through this part of the woods. She was heading deeper, into territory she'd only skirted before. Suddenly, the whisperings intensified to a breathtaking crescendo. Lyra stopped, gasping softly. The air around her pulsed with light, not just the tiny motes she'd seen before, but a soft, pervasive glow that seemed to come from the very moss beneath her feet. It was everywhere, turning the emerald gloom into a shimmering, magical expanse. And then, she saw it. At the base of an enormous elderwood, a tree so ancient its trunk was scarred with deep, spiraling patterns, the moss glowed with an almost blinding intensity. Not the soft emerald of the typical moss lamps, but a vibrant, pulsing sapphire blue, shot through with threads of shimmering silver. It covered a large, flat section of the root base, sprawling like a living carpet. And from the very center of this glowing moss, the whisperings erupted, a chorus so clear, so profound, that Lyra felt tears sting her eyes. It was a song, wordless yet full of meaning, ancient and profound, speaking of beginnings and endings, of stars and earth, of life and magic. Mesmerized, Lyra knelt before the glowing moss. She reached out a trembling hand, her fingers brushing against the soft, cool surface. It felt alive, humming with an inner energy. As her fingers made contact, the whisperings surged, and the sapphire glow intensified, spreading outwards in shimmering ripples. Then slowly, impossibly, a section of the glowing moss began to part. It didn't peel back or retract, it simply opened, like a curtain being drawn aside, revealing an aperture in the ancient wood beneath. It was a doorway, perfectly arched, its edges smooth and dark, leading into what looked like a tunnel carved within the very heart of the elderwood. The entrance itself glowed with a soft internal light, a deep, inviting warmth. Lyra stared, her breath caught in her throat. She had never heard of such a thing. The elderwoods were not meant to have doors, not natural ones that simply opened. This was something entirely new, entirely unexpected. And the whisperings, now flowing from the depths of the newly revealed passage, were an irresistible siren song, a call to adventure, a promise of revelation. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a mixture of fear and exhilarating wonder. Her mother's warning about the deep roots echoed in her mind, but this wasn't the deep roots. This was something else entirely. This was a secret, revealed only to her. She looked back at the weeping woods, the familiar shadows, the moss-draped branches. Then, she looked at the glowing archway, beckoning. The whisperings were a gentle pressure against her forehead, a soft hand at her back, urging her forward. Slowly, deliberately, Lyra pushed herself to her feet. She took a deep breath, the air in her lungs feeling crisp and alive. Her hands still tingled from contact with the glowing moss. She took one hesitant step, then another, towards the shimmering entrance. The warmth emanating from within enveloped her, wrapping around her like a soft blanket. As she stepped across the threshold, the sapphire moss rippled behind her, closing almost imperceptibly, leaving no trace of the opening. Lyra didn't notice. Her eyes were fixed on the path ahead, a gently sloping tunnel of smooth, luminous wood, carved with intricate, swirling patterns that seemed to shift and dance in the soft internal light. The whisperings, now incredibly clear, became a flowing river of sound, pulling her deeper into the heart of the elderwood, into the unknown. The air was sweet, smelling of ancient earth and something else. Something indescribably magical, like starlight and forgotten dreams. Lyra, child of Ethelgard, had just stepped into a world she never knew existed, guided by the whisperings that only she could hear. And she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that her journey had only just begun. Her boots, usually making a soft crunch on the forest floor of Ethelgard, now met a surface unlike any she had known. It was soft, yielding, yet resilient, like compacted moss woven with threads of silver light. The air, thick with the scent of starlight and forgotten dreams, shimmered with a pale, ethereal luminescence that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath her feet and the bark of the colossal trees that towering overhead. These were not the gnarled, familiar oaks of her homeland, but giants of spiraling, iridescent wood, their branches reaching into a perpetual twilight canopy that pulsed with soft internal light. The river of sound, which had pulled her through the threshold, now flowed around her, a symphonic hum that resonated in her chest, a language she understood not with her ears, but with her soul. It was a chorus of ancient whispers, of growing roots, of unfurling leaves, of the slow, deliberate breath of the forest itself. Each note was a story, each harmony a forgotten memory. Lyra took a hesitant step, then another. Her heart, which had thrummed with a mix of fear and exhilaration, now settled into a rhythm that matched the forest's own slow, powerful pulse. She felt no cold. Despite the twilight glow, only a gentle warmth that seeped into her bones, chasing away the last vestiges of the world she had left behind. Ahead, the path, if it could be called that, wound through colossal root systems that spiraled like petrified serpents, forming natural arches draped with glowing moss that dripped phosphorescent dew. Strange, bell-shaped flowers, their petals like spun glass, chimed with the faintest breeze, adding a delicate counterpoint to the deep hum. They clustered in luminous patches, casting pools of gentle light that revealed more of the forest's wonders. A creature, no larger than her thumb, darted past, leaving a trail of shimmering dust. It had wings like a dragonfly's but spun from pure light, and a tiny body that glowed with an inner fire. Lyra watched it disappear into a curtain of hanging vines that sparkled like 1,000 scattered jewels. Everything here was alive, imbued with a magic so potent it made the very air sing. The whispers intensified, not urging her faster, but guiding her with a gentle persistence, like a shepherd coaxing a lamb. They pointed her gaze to a shimmering pool nestled between two massive roots. The water was not clear, but a swirling nebula of blues and greens, reflecting the internal light of the forest in a dazzling display. As she approached, the whispers clarified, coalescing into a single resonant tone that vibrated from the pool itself. Hesitantly, Lyra knelt, peering into the swirling depths. The water pulsed, and images began to form within its surface, faint at first, then clearer. She saw glimpses of ancient trees, far older and grander than even these, their branches touching the heavens. She saw figures, tall and slender, with eyes that held the wisdom of ages, moving with a grace that seemed to defy gravity. They were beings of light and shadow, guardians perhaps, tending to a world brimming with even more profound magic. Then, the images shifted. She saw shadows, not of light, but of true darkness, creeping at the edges of the ancient forest, tendrils of blight threatening to corrupt the vibrant heart of the world. Fear, cold and sharp, pricked her. The whispers around her softened, a comforting hum, as if reassuring her that she was not seeing her future, but perhaps a past or a potential threat. When she looked up from the pool, the forest seemed subtly different. The light was a fraction brighter, the hum a little more insistent. The whispers now directed her away from the pool, deeper into the heart of the wood. She rose, her legs feeling light, her mind brimming with the strange visions. The sense of purpose, which had settled in her bones, now felt like a living current flowing through her veins. She walked for what felt like hours, though time seemed to lose all meaning in this place. The paths shifted and reformed before her, guided by the whispers, leading her effortlessly through tangles of glowing roots and shimmering vines. She passed beneath arches of intertwined branches that formed vaulted cathedrals of living wood, their ceilings adorned with blossoms that wept luminous nectar. She saw creatures of light and shadow, tiny iridescent moths with wings like stained glass, deer with antlers like crystalline branches, and squirrels with tails that shimmered like captured rainbows. None seemed to notice her, or if they did, they showed no fear, only a quiet acknowledgement. The deeper she ventured, the more profound the magic became. The air itself felt thick with it, shimmering with an almost visible energy. The trees grew even grander, their bark etched with ancient runes that pulsed with a soft inner light. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, coalescing into a melody that was both ancient and new, a song of awakening and destiny. Finally, the path opened into a vast clearing. But it was no ordinary clearing. In its center stood a single magnificent tree, unlike any other. It was colossal, its trunk wider than a village square, its bark a smooth pearlescent white that seemed to absorb and radiate light simultaneously. Its leaves, a delicate silver green, shimmered and rustled, not with wind, but with an unseen energy, creating a sound like 1,000 tiny bells. From its branches hung luminous orbs, each one glowing with a different hue, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the clearing. This was the heart tree, she knew instinctively, the very core of the elderwood. At the base of the heart tree, nestled among its immense roots, sat a figure. She was tall and slender, her skin the color of polished bark, her hair a cascade of living leaves and silver moss. Her eyes, the color of deep forest pools, were ancient and wise, and they were fixed on Lyra. She wore a simple gown woven from glowing vines, and her hands, delicate as spider silk, rested on a gnarled staff that pulsed with the same pearlescent light as the heart tree itself. A gasp escaped Lyra's lips, not of fear, but of profound wonder. The whispers which had guided her all this way now settled into a gentle, expectant hum. The figure smiled, a slow, serene unfolding that warned the clearing. "Welcome, child of Ethelgard," she said, her voice like the rustling of leaves and the gentle flow of a forest stream. "We have been expecting you." Lyra found her voice, a little breathless. You have." "For many ages," the figure replied, her gaze unwavering. "The whispers are not merely sounds, Lyra. They are the voice of the elderwood, the song of life, and the memory of all that is. They resonate with those whose souls are attuned to the deeper currents of the world. You are one such soul." Who are you?" Lyra asked, taking a hesitant step forward. "I'm Elara," the dryad replied, gesturing to the magnificent tree. "Guardian of the heart tree, and keeper of the elderwood's ancient lore." Lyra approached, drawn by Elara's calm presence and the overwhelming sense of peace that emanated from the heart tree. "The whispers. They led me here. They spoke of a journey, of something I needed to find." Elara nodded slowly. "Indeed, the elderwood is a sanctuary, Lyra, a place where the veil between worlds is thin, where magic flows freely, untouched by the growing discord of the outer realms. But even here, ancient echoes stir, and new threats arise." "Threats?" Lyra remembered the dark shadows in the shimmering pool. "The visions you saw in the whispering pool were not mere reflections," Elara explained. "They were glimpses of a growing shadow, a blight that seeks to unravel the very fabric of magic. For generations, the elderwood has stood as a bulwark, its energy flowing out to sustain the balance of the world. But the balance is weakening. The whispers have grown frantic, for they sense a disturbance, a growing silence in places where life should sing." Lyra's brow furrowed. "But what can I do? I'm just Lyra. I only just discovered this place." Elara's smile softened. "You are more than just Lyra, child. You are a bridge. You hear the whispers when others cannot. Your heart is open to the ancient magic, and it is this unique connection that the elderwood has called upon. The whispers did not lead you here to merely witness, but to act." "Act how?" "The heart tree," Elara began, her voice taking on a more serious tone, "is the source of the elderwood's power. Its roots reach into the very ley lines of the world, drawing magic and sustaining life. But its song, the purest expression of the whispers, has begun to falter. A vital part of its essence, a crystalline seed known as the echoing seed, was stolen many centuries ago. Long stolen?" Lyra felt a pang of indignation on behalf of the ancient tree. "Yes, a being known as the Shadow Weaver, a sorcerer who sought to corrupt and control magic for his own dark purposes. He believed that by possessing the echoing seed, he could drain the elderwood of its power and bend all magic to his will. He did not succeed in destroying the tree, but he tore away a piece of its living heart, dimming its song and weakening its protective aura." "And the whispers? They want me to find it?" Lyra asked, a daunting prospect forming in her mind. Elara nodded. "The echoing seed is not merely a gem, Lyra. It is a living echo of the heart tree's song. Without it, the heart tree cannot fully resonate, cannot fully replenish the world's magic. The growing shadows you saw are a direct consequence of this imbalance. The whispers have reached out, across the thinning veil, seeking a pure heart, unburdened by the cynicism of the world." "Where is it?" Lyra asked, her resolve hardening. The idea of restoring such a magnificent place, of bringing back its full song, filled her with a fierce determination. The Shadow Weaver, in his arrogance, hid the echoing seed in a place he believed impenetrable. The shrouded peaks far to the north, beyond the boundaries of Ethelgard. A realm of jagged mountains, treacherous mists and creatures, twisted by the lingering darkness of his magic. Elara paused, her gaze searching Lyra's face. It will be a perilous journey, Lyra. You will face trials unlike any you have known, but you will not be alone. The whispers will guide you, and the elderwood will lend you its strength. Lyra looked back at the heart tree, its luminous branches reaching into the twilight. A sense of awe mixed with a growing determination. I'll go, she said, her voice clear and steady. I'll find the echoing seed. Elara's smile returned, a ray of gentle sunshine in the ancient clearing. Then your journey truly begins, Lyra of Athelgard. But first, you must be prepared. The Elderwood will bestow upon you a gift, a tool to aid you on your quest. With a graceful motion, Elara extended her hand towards the heart tree. Its pearlescent bark shimmered, and from a knot in its trunk, a soft light emanated. As the light grew, a small, delicate object began to emerge. It was a staff, not gnarled and ancient like Elara's, but slender and elegant, crafted from the same luminous white wood as the heart tree itself. It was about Lyra's height, topped with a cluster of silver-green leaves that pulsed with a gentle inner light. This is the Staff of Whispers, Elara explained as the staff floated gently towards Lyra. It is attuned to your unique ability. It will amplify your connection to the Elderwood's song, helping you to discern the whispers more clearly, to navigate the hidden paths, and to even in time, weave the magic of the forest itself. It will shield you from some of the darkness you may encounter, and guide you when doubt clouds your path. Lyra reached out, her fingers brushing the smooth, cool wood. As she grasped the staff, a warm tingle spread through her arm up to her shoulder, and then through her entire body. The whispers, which had been a gentle hum, now resonated more powerfully through the staff, feeling like an extension of her own will. The silver-green leaves at its tip glowed brighter in response to her touch. She felt a surge of confidence, a sense of belonging she had never known. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "There is more," Elara continued. "The journey to the shrouded peaks is long and arduous. You will need sustenance and protection. The Elderwood will provide." Elara then led Lyra to a hidden alcove within the roots of the heart tree. There, nestled on a bed of glowing moss, were several items. A small, intricately woven satchel made of iridescent fibers, surprisingly light, but seemingly bottomless. Inside, Lyra peered, were small, crystalline fruits that glowed with a soft internal light. "Sunberries," Elara explained. "They sustain the body and banish fatigue." There was also a flask carved from smooth, dark wood, filled with a liquid that shimmered like liquid starlight, river dew, from the deepest springs of the Elderwood, capable of healing minor wounds and invigorating the spirit. "You will also need proper attire for the journey," Elara said, indicating a cloak folded neatly beside the satchel. It was woven from the same pearlescent fibers as the satchel, shimmering with a subtle chameleon-like quality. "This is a cloak of shifting mist. It will provide warmth in the cold mountains and will help you blend into your surroundings, making you harder for hostile eyes to perceive." Lyra carefully donned the cloak. It felt weightless, flowing around her like a second skin, its subtle shimmer making her feel almost invisible in the dappled light of the clearing. She adjusted the satchel over her shoulder, feeling the comforting weight of the Staff of Whispers in her hand. "Before you depart," Elara said, her voice now tinged with a solemnity that resonated with the ancient hum of the heart tree, "there is one more thing you must understand. The Shadow Weaver did not act alone. He commanded other beings, creatures twisted by his dark magic. And though he himself has been imprisoned in a forgotten realm for centuries, his influence lingers. Some of his corrupted servants still roam the shrouded peaks, guarding his secrets and the echoing seas." "What kind of creatures?" Lyra asked, a knot of apprehension forming in her stomach. "Beings of shadow and corrupted earth," Elara replied, her gaze distant, as if peering through layers of time. "Gloomhounds with eyes of embers, stone golems animated by dark will, and perhaps even the whisper wraiths, echoes of the Shadow Weaver's own corrupted magic, drawn to the sound of pure magic like yours, seeking to twist it to their master's lingering purpose. They feed on doubt and fear, Lyra. Your greatest weapon against them will be your courage, your pure heart, and your unwavering—" Lyra gripped the Staff of Whispers tighter, its warmth a reassurance. "I understand." Ilara then looked towards the edge of the clearing, where the glowing trees seemed to part slightly, revealing a path that led into a darker, more dense part of the forest, away from the luminous heart tree. "The whispers will guide you to the edge of the elderwood, where the veil is thinnest, and you can cross back into the outer world, near the foothills of the shrouded peaks. From there, your true ascent begins. Remember, Lyra, you carry the hope of the elderwood. Listen to the whispers. Trust your heart, and never forget the song that binds all life." With a final, reassuring nod, Ilara stepped back, merging subtly with the immense roots of the heart tree, becoming almost indistinguishable from the living wood. Her presence remained, a warm, ancient energy, but Lyra knew she was now truly on her own. The whispers, a chorus of gentle yet insistent voices, now called to her from the shadowed path Ilara had indicated. They were not vague or abstract now. They were a clear direction, a melody that pulled her forward. Taking a deep breath, Lyra adjusted her cloak, clutched the staff of whispers, and stepped onto the path, leaving the radiant clearing behind. The path through the deeper elderwood was different from the one that led to the heart tree. Here, the light was dimmer, filtered through thicker canopies, and the air was cooler. The trees were still magnificent, but they seemed more ancient, their bark darker, their branches more gnarled, as if bearing the weight of countless ages. Strange, bioluminescent fungi dotted the forest floor, casting pools of ghostly light that danced with her every step. She walked in silence, save for the constant hum of the whispers guiding her, and the soft rustle of her cloak. The staff of whispers felt alive in her hand, its tip glowing faintly, almost like a divining rod, subtly tugging her in the correct direction. She passed by trees that seemed to weep luminous sap, and through groves where the air tasted of wild mint and distant thunder. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time was still a fluid concept here. The path gradually began to ascend, the ground becoming rockier, the ancient trees giving way to more conventional, though still immense, evergreens. The soft mossy ground of the elderwood transitioned to packed earth, then to loose scree. The air grew colder, and the scent of ancient earth and starlight slowly faded, replaced by the crisp, metallic tang of mountain air. The whispers, too, began to change. Their symphonic chorus gradually thinned, becoming more focused, like a single clear note, pointing relentlessly upwards. The shimmering, ethereal light of the elderwood receded behind her, replaced by the pale, distant glow of a night sky she recognized, dotted with familiar constellations. Finally, Lyra emerged from a dense thicket of pines, stepping out onto a narrow rocky ledge. Below her, the land stretched out, dark and vast, a rolling sea of forests and hills, dimly lit by the moon. And directly ahead, looming like silent sentinels against the star-strewn sky, were the shrouded peaks. Their jagged summits were wreathed in dark, swirling mists, even on this clear night, giving them an ominous, almost predatory appearance. They rose precipitously, their crags and ravines looking like the teeth of some colossal, sleeping beast. A shiver ran down Lyra's spine, not entirely from the cold. The whispers, now a singular, urgent hum, emanating from the staff of whispers, pointed directly at the darkest, most imposing peak. That was where the echoing seed lay. She looked back once, trying to discern the entrance to the elderwood, but it had vanished. The trees behind her seemed to have closed ranks, their branches forming an impenetrable wall of green and shadow. It was as if the elderwood had swallowed its own entrance, keeping its secrets safe. There was no turning back. Lyra took a deep breath, the cold mountain air filling her lungs. The staff of whispers felt solid and reassuring in her hand. The cloak of shifting mist settled around her, a silent promise of protection. She looked up at the daunting peaks, then tightened her grip on the staff. The journey had truly begun. The first part of her ascent was a scramble up a steep rocky slope, following the insistent pull of the staff. The ground was loose, and more than once she slipped, catching herself with the staff or a quick hand. The whispers were precise, guiding her to footholds she might otherwise have missed, pointing out stable rocks from crumbling shale. As she climbed higher, the air grew thinner, the wind sharper, whipping at her cloak. The trees became sparser, stunted and gnarled, clinging desperately to the harsh rock faces. The silence of the mountains was profound, broken only by the howl of the wind and the occasional skitter of unseen creatures. It was a stark contrast to the living symphony of the elderwood. The moonlight, though bright, seemed to struggle against the inherent gloom of these mountains. Shadows stretched long and distorted, twisting familiar shapes into monstrous forms. Lyra kept her gaze fixed ahead, on the faint, guiding glow of her staff, refusing to let her imagination conjure terrors from the dancing shadows. She reached a narrow ridge, where the wind threatened to tear her from her precarious perch. Below, the world was a black abyss, and above, the peak seemed to recede further into the night. It was here, amidst the biting wind and the oppressive silence, that she first encountered a true sign of the Shadow Weaver's lingering presence. A low growl, guttural and chilling, echoed from the darkness just beyond the ridge. Lyra froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. The staff of whispers pulsed urgently, its light flickering. From the swirling mist that clung to the peak, 2 glowing red eyes emerged, followed by a hulking, 4-legged shape. It was a creature of nightmare, a gloom hound, its fur matted and dark as dried blood, its body lean and muscular, with razor-sharp claws that scraped against the rock. Its jaws, lined with needle-like teeth, dripped with a black ichor. It was larger than any wolf she had ever seen, and radiated an aura of pure malevolence. The whispers, now a frantic chorus, urged her to move, to evade, to protect and... The gloomhound snarled, a sound that seemed to tear at the very fabric of the night, and lunged. Lyra, reacting on instinct, raised the staff of whispers. As the creature sprang, a burst of emerald light erupted from the staff's tip, striking the gloomhound full in the chest. The creature shrieked, a sound of pain and outrage, and stumbled back, its glowing eyes momentarily dimming. The light from the staff, though powerful, seemed to merely stun it, not harm it. This was not the gentle magic of the elderwood, but a confrontation with true darkness. It feeds on fear. Elara's words echoed in her mind. Lyra took a shaky breath, forcing herself to stand her ground. The staff felt warm and powerful in her hands. The gloomhound recovered quickly, shaking its head, its eyes now burning with renewed fury. It circled, a low, menacing growl rumbling in its throat, clearly assessing her. It was intelligent, cunning. Lyra remembered Elara's words about weaving the magic of the forest. But, how? She had no training, no prior experience. The whispers, however, were not silent. They flowed through the staff, guiding her thoughts, her movements. Focus, Lyra. Feel the life around you. Not the elderwood's life, but the resilient life of these mountains. The tenacity of the rock, the enduring strength of the stunted pines. Ninanande, can you see? Lyra closed her eyes for a fleeting second, feeling the cold rock beneath her feet, the wind against her face, the faint scent of pine resin. She opened them, her gaze locking onto the gloomhound. The creature lunged again, faster this time, aiming for her throat. Lyra instinctively spun the staff of whispers, and as she did, the silver-green leaves at its tip flared. A swirling vortex of emerald light and shimmering mist erupted from the staff, not directly at the hound, but around it, forming a shimmering cage of light. The gloomhound slammed into the magical barrier with a yelp, recoiling as if burned. The light held it, shimmering and vibrating, preventing its escape. It snarled and clawed at the glowing mist, but its efforts were futile. Lyra, breathing heavily, stared at what she had done. She had woven magic. Not the gentle, growth-oriented magic she might have imagined, but a protective, binding force. The whispers thrummed with approval, a triumphant chord resonating through her. The gloomhound continued to rage, but the barrier held. Lyra knew she couldn't keep it trapped indefinitely, and she certainly couldn't defeat it directly. Her mission was to retrieve the echoing seed, not to slay every corrupted beast in the mountains. The whispers urged her forward, past the snarling, trapped beast. With newfound confidence, Lyra skirted the shimmering cage, keeping a wary eye on the creature. Its frustrated snarls followed her as she continued her ascent, the staff's light unwavering. The path grew steeper, leading her into a narrow crevice between 2 immense rock faces. The wind howled here, a mournful, echoing sound, and the air grew even colder. The rock walls were slick with ice in places, and she had to use the staff to test each handhold and foothold. The deeper she went into the crevice, the darker it became. The moonlight couldn't penetrate here, and even the stars were obscured. Only the soft glow of her staff illuminated her way, casting dancing shadows that played tricks on her eyes. The whispers, though still present, were fainter, as if struggling against the oppressive gloom. A sense of unease settled over her. This place felt ancient, forgotten, imbued with a cold, malevolent energy that seemed to press in on her from all sides. She clutched the staff tighter, its warmth a small comfort against the encroaching chill. Suddenly, the whispers ceased. Utter silence descended, a heavy, suffocating blanket that was more terrifying than any growl or shriek. Even the wind seemed to die, holding its breath. The staff of whispers, which had been glowing steadily, flickered, its light struggling, then dimmed to a mere ember. Lyra stopped dead, every nerve screaming in alarm. The darkness was absolute. Save for the faint glow of her staff, she couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything. It felt as if she had stepped into a void, a place beyond time and sound. Then, from the oppressive silence, a new sound began to emerge. Not a whisper, but a faint, chilling hiss, like dry leaves skittering across stone, but somehow more insidious, more hungry. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, a sound that clawed at the edges of her mind. The staff of whispers pulsed weakly, its light barely holding back the encroaching darkness. Lyra knew with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that this was not a gloomhound. This was something far older, far more dangerous. Whisper wraiths, Elara's voice echoed in her memory. Echoes of the Shadow Weaver's own corrupted magic, drawn to the sound of pure magic like yours, seeking to twist it to their master's lingering purpose. They feeded on doubt and fear. Doubt and fear. Lyra felt them rising, cold and sharp, threatening to overwhelm her. The absolute silence, the unseen hiss, the dimming light, it was all designed to foster terror. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to banish the rising panic. She focused on the warmth of the staff, on the memory of the heart tree's pearlescent glow, on Elara's calm, reassuring smile. She forced herself to remember the symphony of the elderwood, the vibrant hum of life. The hiss intensified, growing closer, swirling around her. She felt an icy tendril of something unseen brush against her cheek, leaving a trail of profound cold. The staff of whispers flickered, on the verge of extinguishing completely. No! Lyra screamed silently. I, Key, will not let fear consume me. Ondi man, ondi est ancient, bendel ostasiund shot. She opened her eyes, gazing into the impenetrable darkness, and focused all her will, all her courage, all her connection to the elderwood, into the staff. She remembered the feeling of the whispers flowing through her, the song of life. A faint, almost imperceptible hum began to emanate from the staff, battling the oppressive silence. It was the faintest echo of the elderwood's song, a fragile melody against the void. As Lyra poured her resolve into it, the hum grew, strengthening, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The silver-green leaves at the staff's tip flared, not with emerald light, but with a pure white radiance, clear and unwavering. The hiss faltered, retreating slightly. The icy tendrils recoiled. Lyra took a deep, steadying breath. You will not silence me, she said, her voice trembling slightly, but gaining strength with each word. You will not twist the song. As she spoke, the pure white light from the staff intensified, pushing back the oppressive darkness. The whispers, faint but resolute, began to return, weaving themselves into the staff's pure light. They were not guiding her now, but reinforcing her, strengthening her resolve. The whisper wraiths recoiled further, their hissing fading into the depths of the crevice. They could not stand against the purity of the elderwood's song, amplified by Lyra's unwavering spirit. The darkness thinned, revealing faint outlines of the icy rock walls, shimmering with a ghostly luminescence. The wind which had died began to stir again, a gentle whisper against the rocks. Lyra pressed on, the staff of whispers a beacon of pure light in her hand, its hum a steady rhythm in the returning silence. She knew the whisper wraiths were still there, lurking in the deeper shadows, but they had been repelled, their power broken by her courage. She had faced true fear, and she had overcome it. The crevice eventually widened, opening onto another, even steeper slope. The moon, now higher in the sky, cast its silver light over the jagged peaks, revealing a winding path that snaked upwards towards the highest, most formidable summit. The air was frigid, biting, but Lyra felt a warmth radiating from within her, a quiet strength born of her first true trials. The whispers, having returned, now guided her with renewed clarity, their song a constant source of encouragement. The shrouded peaks lay before her, still daunting, still dangerous, but Lyra, child of Athelgard, now carried not just the hope of the Elderwood, but the burgeoning magic of her own awakened spirit. Her journey was far from over. The echoing seed awaited, nestled somewhere in the heart of that foreboding peak. And she knew, with a certainty deeper than bone, that she would find it. The whispers, having returned, now guided her with renewed clarity, their song a constant source of encouragement. The shrouded peaks lay before her, still daunting, still dangerous, but Lyra, child of Athelgard, now carried not just the hope of the Elderwood, but the burgeoning magic of her own awakened spirit. Her journey was far from over. The echoing seed awaited, nestled somewhere in the heart of that foreboding peak. And she knew, with a certainty deeper than bone, that she would find it. The first steps onto the slopes of the shrouded peaks were like walking into a dream woven of ice and ancient stone. The air was thin and sharp, biting at her cheeks, but Lyra felt a strange exhilaration. The whispers, no longer a faint hum, thrummed around her like a living melody, guiding her eyes to a barely visible path winding upwards between colossal, snow-draped boulders. The peaks were not barren, as they seemed from a distance. Here, ancient, gnarled pines, their needles coated in rime, clung tenaciously to the rocky ledges. Beneath her feet, the snow crunched with a sound like powdered starlight, revealing veins of deep blue crystal embedded in the rock. With each breath, Lyra felt the mountain's unique magic seep into her, a cold, clean power that resonated with the warmth of her own spirit. Her first true challenge came in the form of a chasm, its depths lost in a swirling mist. The path simply ended. Fear pricked at her, a cold tendril reaching for her heart. But then the whispers grew insistent, a soft, encouraging chorus that urged her to look deeper. She closed her eyes, focusing on the warmth in her chest, the nascent magic that had awoken. When she opened them again, the mist seemed to part, revealing faint, shimmering handholds of ice, barely translucent against the gray rock face, invisible to the unaided eye. Slowly, carefully, Lyra began to climb. Her fingers, though numb with cold, found purchase. Her spirit magic, a gentle current within her, flowed into her limbs, giving them strength and steadiness. She felt a connection to the ice itself, a silent understanding of its crystalline structure, allowing her to move with a grace she hadn't known she possessed. The whispers were a constant comfort, like a parent's hand guiding a child through the dark. Higher she climbed, the landscape growing more fantastical. She traversed shimmering bridges of compressed snow that spanned dizzying drops, their surfaces glowing faintly with an inner light. She passed through groves of silent crystal trees that chimed like 1,000 tiny bells in the passing wind. The wind itself was a force, a playful, sometimes mischievous spirit, tugging at her cloak, trying to push her off balance. But Lyra, recalling the strength of the Elderwood's roots, planted her feet firmly, her spirit resolute. She learned to lean into the wind, to flow with its power rather than fight against it. One evening, as the twin moons of Athelgard cast long silver shadows across the peaks, Lyra sought shelter in a small cave. The temperature dropped dramatically, and a deep, bone-aching cold seeped into her. She huddled, shivering, her teeth chattering. The whispers, usually so warm, now seemed to falter, their melody thin and distant. Despair threatened to creep in. She carried the warmth within, they gently reminded her. One idea spark of life, the heart of the sun. One enda. Lyra remembered the Elderwood, its ancient warmth, the sun-dappled glades of home. She focused, not on the biting cold outside but on the glowing ember of her spirit. She imagined it growing, expanding, a tiny sun in her chest. Slowly, miraculously, a soft golden warmth began to emanate from her. It pushed back the cold, wrapping her in a comforting cocoon. The whispers returned, strong and clear, approving of her discovery. Her spirit magic wasn't just for seeing or climbing, it was a source of inner warmth, a shield against the harshest elements. Days blurred into a pattern of challenging climbs, moments of quiet wonder, and constant learning. Lyra discovered she could communicate with the mountain's lesser spirits, the tiny, pebble-skinned rock sprites who pointed out hidden paths with their luminous eyes, and the playful wind wisps who sometimes carried her over small gaps or whispered warnings of falling ice. Her magic grew with each step, becoming an extension of her will, a conduit for the life force that flowed through the world. As she neared the upper reaches, the whispers grew more urgent, their melody tinged with a subtle note of distress. The air grew heavy, not with cold, but with a strange oppressive stillness. The vibrant crystalline colors faded, replaced by dull grays and a pervasive gloom. Even the ancient pines here seemed to droop, their branches brittle, their needles a sickly brown. The blight, she realized, had reached even this high. She came upon a vast, naturally formed archway, carved by millennia of wind and ice. Beyond it lay a sight that made her heart ache. A magnificent ice cavern, stretching as far as the eye could see, lay before her. But it was not pristine. Wisps of gray shadow, like tendrils of smoke, writhed across its surface, clinging to the shimmering ice formations, draining their light, leaving them dull and brittle. In the center of this cavern, guarding a spiraling path that disappeared into the mountain's deeper core, stood a colossal figure. It was a guardian, not of flesh and blood, but of the mountain itself, a frost golem, towering over her, crafted from jagged shards of ice and ancient rock. Its eyes, 2 points of glacial blue light, fixed on her with an unyielding gaze. The golem rumbled, a sound like an avalanche, and raised a massive crystalline fist. It was a protector, sensing the blight and perceiving Lyra as another intrusion, another threat. The whispers, though distressed, were clear. Not with force, child. With understanding. Aye. With connection. Well, he and Timur. Lyra stood her ground, her heart pounding, but her resolve steady. She didn't draw a weapon, nor did she conjure any spell of attack. Instead, she reached out with her mind, with her spirit, to the golem. She projected her intent. I mean no harm. I come to heal. To free the mountain from the blight that poisons us both. Kinde, Handidal, Wansho. The golem hesitated, its enormous fist still raised. It had known only the chill of the mountains, the slow, grinding passage of time. It understood only defense. Lyra focused her inner warmth, the golden light she had learned to conjure, and sent it outwards, towards the golem. It wasn't a blast of energy, but a gentle wave of pure, living warmth, imbued with her compassion and her purpose. The golem's crystalline form shimmered. One of its blue eyes flickered, then softened. The gray tendrils of blight that had begun to cling to its stony shoulders seemed to recoil, hissed faintly as they touched Lyra's warmth. The golem lowered its arm, its rumbling now a low, questioning growl. It sensed the purity of her intent, the life-giving essence of her magic, so different from the cold, draining touch of the blight. It stepped aside, its vast form creating a new path, revealing the entrance to the spiraling tunnel, its voice a deep resonant whisper in her mind. I go. Child of warmth. The heart of the mountain calls. But beware the shadow blight. It feeds on despair. Endurance. Anobikan Maulf. Lyra nodded, her heart filled with gratitude. The mountain was not just rock and ice. It was a living, breathing entity with its own ancient spirits. Her compassion had opened the way where force would have failed. The spiraling path descended sharply into the mountain's belly. Here, the air was still and heavy, thick with a palpable sense of oppression. The whispers grew more urgent, a frantic rhythm now, like a desperate heartbeat. The walls of the tunnel were no longer pristine ice or glowing crystal, but rough-hewn stone, seeping with a viscous, inky blackness that moved and writhed like slow worms. This, she knew, was the shadow blight, the source of the elderwood suffering, and the mountain's corruption. The descent felt endless, a journey into the very heart of sorrow. The blight pressed in on her, whispering not of guidance but of doubt, of failure, of the impossibility of her task. You are but a child. The elderwood is doomed. Your magic is a flicker against this darkness. Lyra fought against the insidious voices, clinging to the whispers of hope that still echoed, albeit faintly, from deep within her own spirit. She thought of her people, of the ancient trees, of the clear-eyed deer and the singing birds, and her resolve hardened. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast, breathtaking chamber. It was a cathedral of crystal, far grander than anything she had seen before. Towering stalactites of amethyst and quartz hung from the ceiling, meeting stalagmites of emerald and ruby rising from the floor, forming colossal columns that pulsed with a faint, inner light. Water, imbued with deep earth magic, collected in shimmering pools at the base of these formations, reflecting the crystalline glory. But this sacred space was defiled. A vast, swirling vortex of pure shadow dominated the center of the chamber, like a gaping wound in the fabric of reality. It pulsed with a terrible hunger, sending out tendrils of darkness that latched onto the crystals, drawing their light, their life, their very essence into itself. The once vibrant colors of the chamber were muted, drained, the light within the crystals dim and struggling. And there, at the very heart of the vortex, encased within a web of the deepest, most suffocating shadow, was a single, pulsating orb. It was about the size of a child's head, shimmering with a faint ethereal glow that tried to break through the darkness. It was the echoing seed. And it was being consumed. The shadow blight, a vast, formless intelligence, turned its attention to Lyra. It had no eyes, no mouth, but she felt its presence, its ancient consuming hunger. It spoke directly into her mind, its voice a chorus of despair, resonating with the doubt it had already planted in her heart. "You came. How foolish. Another morsel of life to feed my endless hunger. This mountain, this world, will be mine. The elderwood is already withering. And you, little spark, will be extinguished." "Kernan. Only." Lyra faltered for a moment, the sheer scale of the darkness overwhelming her. It felt like all the sorrow, all the decay, all the cold emptiness of the world had coalesced into this one terrible entity. But then, the whispers, though faint, became a singular, unwavering note of pure light within her mind. "You remember the elderwood. Remember its strength. Remember the love that binds you." And Lyra took a deep breath, steeling her spirit. "You will not consume it," she declared, her voice small but firm in the vast chamber. "You will not consume anything more." The shadow blight responded with a wave of pure, concentrated despair, trying to crush her spirit, to drive her to her knees. Visions flashed through her mind. The elderwood a desolate wasteland, her people crying out in anguish, her own small body turning to dust. But Lyra held fast. She closed her eyes, focusing on the golden warmth within her, letting it grow, letting it become a blazing sun in her chest. She remembered the touch of the sun on her skin, the laughter of her friends, the deep, comforting thrum of the elderwood's heart. She opened her eyes, and a soft golden light radiated from her, pushing back against the encroaching shadow. "You feed on despair," Lyra said, her voice now stronger, infused with her burgeoning magic. "But I carry hope. You feed on emptiness, but I carry life. You feed on darkness, but I carry light." The shadow blight shrieked, a sound that seemed to tear at the very fabric of the chamber, as Lyra's words, imbued with her spirit magic, struck it like physical blows. Its tendrils lashed out, coiling towards her, seeking to ensnare and drain her. Lyra didn't retreat. Instead, she took another step forward, her focus entirely on the echoing seed, still struggling within the blight's grasp. The whispers told her, "Connect. Infuse. Free. Think I. Free. In our." She raised her hands, palms open, and poured her spirit magic outwards. It wasn't an attack, but an offering. A stream of pure golden light, vibrant with life and love, flowed from her fingertips, reaching towards the shadow blight's oppressive web. The shadows recoiled from the warmth, hissing and spitting. Lyra felt the drain, the blight trying to pull her energy into itself, but she resisted, anchoring herself with her resolve, with the memory of Athelgard. The whispers intensified, merging into a single powerful song of ancient magic, urging her on. Lyra poured more of herself into the stream of light, channeling the very essence of her awakened spirit. The light intensified, shimmering with all the colors of the elderwood, all the warmth of the sun, all the deep, resonant magic of the mountain itself. It was a river of pure life force, flowing directly into the shadowy web that held the echoing seed captive. The shadow blight roared in frustration and pain. The light was anathema to it, burning away its hold. The tendrils snapped and withered. With a final explosive burst of golden energy, the web shattered, dissipating into wisps of harmless smoke. The echoing seed was free. It hung in the air, a pulsing orb of crystalline light, still dim, still waiting. Its light flickered, hesitant, as if unsure of its freedom. It was a heart that had been imprisoned, and now needed to beat again. It needs more, the whispers urged. More life. More hope. More of you. Gander. And sense. Lyra understood. The echoing seed was not a weapon to be wielded, but a source of life to be rekindled. And she, with her awakened spirit, was the conduit. This was the ultimate challenge, the true purpose of her journey. The shadow blight, furious at its loss, coalesced into a more defined, terrifying form, a colossal, swirling maw of darkness, wreathed in shadows, its emptiness yearning to consume her completely. It lunged, faster than thought, aiming to extinguish her light before she could awaken the seed. Lyra stood her ground, her gaze fixed on the seed. She closed her eyes, not in fear, but in concentration. She drew upon every ounce of her spirit, every memory of love and light, every whisper of hope. She became a vessel, a conduit for the vast ancient magic that flowed through the world, through the elderwood, through the very heart of the mountain. Her golden glow intensified, becoming a searing, blinding column of pure white gold light that pulsed outwards from her small form. She reached out, her hands enveloping the echoing seed. A jolt, like lightning, but warm and life-giving, coursed through her. She poured her essence, her very being, into the seed. She felt a profound connection, not just to the seed, but to the entire world, a vast network of life and magic. She was no longer just Lyra, child of Athelgard. She was a living, breathing part of the world's ancient song. The echoing seed flared. Not with a gentle pulse, but with a magnificent, explosive burst of pure, vibrant light. It was a light that was not just bright, but Yalave, humming with the energy of creation, the warmth of 1,000 suns, the green promise of spring. It was the purest essence of life, unleashed. The shadow blight shrieked, a sound of agony and utter defeat. The light struck it, not as a physical blow, but as an absolute negation of its existence. Darkness cannot exist where there is absolute light. Emptiness cannot persist in the face of overflowing life. The vast, swirling maw of shadow began to unravel, shrinking, dissolving, consumed by the sheer brilliance of the awakened seed. It was not destroyed, but transmuted, its parasitic hunger replaced by the overwhelming force of creation, its essence scattered into harmless motes of pure potential. The light filled the entire crystal chamber, washing over the dull, drained formations, restoring their vibrancy. Amethysts glowed deep violet, quartz shimmered with inner fire, emeralds pulsed with renewed green life. The pools of water sparkled, reflecting the glorious, radiant heart of the mountain. The echoing seed, now fully awakened, hovered gently in the center of the chamber, a beacon of perpetual light and life, sending out waves of rejuvenating energy that pulsed through the crystal veins of the mountain, down through its deep earth, spreading outwards like ripples in a pond. Lyra, utterly exhausted but triumphant, slowly lowered her hands. The brilliant light of the seed remained, a steady, comforting presence. She felt a profound peace settle over her, a deep stillness that resonated with the humming heart of the mountain. The whispers, now a harmonious choir of celebration and gratitude, flowed through her, embracing her. Her journey back down the shrouded peaks was a dream of effortless grace. The mountain, now vibrant and alive, seemed to welcome her, to guide her. The paths were clear, the winds gentle, the air crisp and clean. The gray tendrils of blight were gone, replaced by a soft, shimmering aura of purity. The crystal trees chimed with renewed joy, and the rock sprites waved their tiny, luminous farewells. As she descended, she could see it. The elder wood. From this height, she saw a faint, tender blush of green, a gentle glow, spreading through the gray, brittle canopy. It was healing. The blight was receding, retreating like a bad dream. Hope, vibrant and real, bloomed in her heart. She reached the foothills, her legs weary, her spirits soaring. The path that led back to Athelgard was no longer a grim, shadowed tunnel, but a bright, sun-dappled trail. And there, waiting at the edge of the Elderwood, were her people. They rushed forward, their faces etched with worry turning to relief, then to wonder. Her parents embraced her fiercely, tears streaming down their faces. The elders, their expressions solemn, saw not just the child who had left, but the young woman who had returned, bathed in a faint residual glow of mountain magic. The Elderwood, though still recovering, was visibly transforming. Over the next few days, the gray bark softened, the brittle branches grew supple. New, vibrant green leaves unfurled, unfurling with a gentle sigh of relief. The ancient trees, once silent and dying, began to hum with a quiet, powerful energy. The blight, now banished, was a distant memory. The forest was reborn. Lyra, the child who had once felt small and uncertain, now walked with a quiet strength. Her spirit magic was no longer a nascent flicker, but a steady flame, a deep connection to the living world around her. She could feel the pulse of the Elderwood, the distant thrum of the echoing seed in the shrouded peaks, the gentle whispers of the wind through the newly green leaves. She was a bridge between the ancient heart of the mountain and the vibrant life of her home. She had answered the call. She had faced the darkness and brought back the light. And as she sat beneath the rustling leaves of a fully restored elderwood tree, feeling the deep, comforting pulse of life beneath her, Lyra knew that the whispers would always be with her, a constant reminder of the magic within and the boundless wonder of the world. The Elderwood flourished, Athelgard prospered, and Lyra, the brave child who dared to listen, became a guardian, forever connected to the beating heart of their enchanted world. And as the twin moons rose, casting their gentle light over the peaceful forest, she closed her eyes, a soft smile on her face, knowing that all was well.